my name is Arin. I evidently have a problem, and this is Arin Reads. Today we're going to do a little book haul, and by little I mean the 58 books that I have purchased since my last book haul in October. I've said it once, I've said it a million times. It was a rough winter. Here we are. I am proud of myself that a lot of these are used in secondhand or on sale, and I've read a lot of them already. So I'm trying to be gentle with myself. And also, sometimes we need to invest in things that bring us joy. So this is a positive space. Luca's feeling very spicy today. Very lovey, as always, but very lovey in a kneading my skin, nibbling on my fingers type of way, and I'm less than loving it. I know that it's with love. It just also hurts. But anyway, I thought that we would go by genre and start with romance, because that is the biggest section, because again, they had a rough winter. So a lot of romance in this haul. So let's get started. All right, at the top of the pile, oh, really quick, you can see this shelf and this stack. There's a whole other shelf. There's a whole other shelf with stacked books right underneath. So. And first on the romance stack is Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. I have already read this one, and it's going to be one of my favorite books of the year. But this is not a review video, this is a haul, so just broad strokes of what this is about. This is a romance between our main character, Chloe, who has fibromyalgia, like I do, that's why I got this book, and Red, who is like I don't know what it's called. The person who lives in your apartment building and like fixes stuff, but they're not the landlord. They don't own it. They're just like there to like answer the door if someone has a question or whatever. I don't know. And after Chloe almost gets hit by a car, she survives, it doesn't touch her, but it almost hits her. She realizes that she has been taking too strong a care of herself with the fibromyalgia. She's been seeing herself as too fragile and thus spending too much time at home, too much time resting, so much that she feels like she's not living her life anymore. And so she gets Red to help her do things off of a list that she's made that will evidently, help her get a life. It's wonderful. And then next, I picked up secondhand for just a few dollars. I love when this happens. One of my favorite books from last year, which was One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. This is in my honorary mentions video. Not quite tippity top, but still one of my favorites. This is a speculative romance between two women. We love to see it. Essentially, a woman moves to New York and has to take the subway a lot, as one does in New York. And she's starting to see the same woman there every single time, wearing the same clothes, doing the same things. Feelings occur, and then eventually we start to suspect that maybe this woman can't leave the subway. How do you have a relationship with someone who can't leave the subway? This was so fun. The side character. Oh, this is not a review. This is not a review video. I'm gonna have a hard time with this. This is not a review video. That's what this is about, and I own it now. Okay, next we have A Love Song for Ricky Wilde by Tia Williams. I've also read this one, and this is about a woman who also moves to New York. She moves to Harlem to open up a floral shop, and she becomes very, very interested in the history of the Harlem Renaissance. And our other main character is I believe, pianist during the Harlem Renaissance. How do they meet if they live in different times? Oh my goodness, maybe something speculative happens. Ooh, I love speculative romances. This one didn't disappoint. Next we have Georgie All Alone by Kate Claiborne. I just have to say that I really hate this cover, just really quick. This cover, one of my favorite covers of all time. This is so beautiful. I don't love it, but that's okay. This is a contemporary romance between a man and a woman who are very misunderstood in the small town that they live in. She is seen as like a flaky drifter, and he had a very troubled childhood. He got in a lot of trouble with the law growing up, and even though he has worked really, really hard to build back up his reputation, he's still kind of an outcast in this town, and it is the romance between the two of them. Next, we have A Demon's Guide to Wooing a Witch by Sarah Hawley. This is the sequel to A Witch's Guide to Fake Dating a Demon, which is also one of my honorary mentions last year. This one is between the first book's witch's best friend and the first book's demon's mentor/enemy. If you like romances where the two people are trying to murder each other and then it turns into something a whole lot spicier, not in the spiciest violent way, but in a feelings change and a very sweet romance between two people with very short tempers and violent tendencies blossoms, this is for you. It was a good time. Next we have Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. You've probably heard about this book a million times. It's essentially a big city doctor and a small town mayor who fall in love with each other, and they don't really fit into each other's lives. Luca, close to the same frame? I told you, he's in a spicy mood. But anyway, this is a romance between these two people who just don't fit into each other's lives and how they navigate trying to figure out how to when they really deeply love each other. It's fantastic, and so is the sequel, Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez, which is about the big town doctor's best friend and her coworker. They are both ER doctors. She is sassy, funny, just really a great character, and he is sweet and has very intense social anxiety, and that is a big part of their relationship and how they navigate that and how she helps him and how he helps her understand him. They're both great. They're hyped for a reason, but this isn't a review. Next we have a period romance. So this is Frederica by Georgette Hare. I have heard so many great things about Georgette Hare's historical romances. I've heard that she got really deep into research and has like really well crafted, detailed, accurate historical settings, which is very exciting for me because I'm a history nerd. In Frederica, the male love interest, he's wealthy. He lives in London. All the mothers hope to get their daughters to marry him, you know? But he's kind of an asshole. He's very selfish. He's very up his own ass, you know? Until a distant connection asks if she can bring her siblings to London to stay with him to try to marry some of them off. Wouldn't you know it? This Frederica woman, she brings out the soft side of him. Sounds great. I'm very excited. I haven't read this one yet. And then another historical romance. This one matches my shirt pretty well. This is Gwen and Art Are Not in Love by Lex Croucher. My mother-in-law got me this for Christmas. I'm really excited about it. So this is about the descendant of King Arthur, and he is betrothed to a girl named Gwen. But here's the thing. Art's kind of more into other dudes, and Gwen is kind of into other ladies. You know what I'm saying? So this looks so cute. I hope for a really springy, like butterfly in the tummy, just sweet springtime. Okay, you guys. So I did also, I'm just giving Abby Jimenez all my money. I did also get Just for the Summer, which is her most recent release. It just came out like a week ago. I got it because I'm so stoked because I love the other two books so much, but my seasonal brain is just like, you can't read this until it's sunny. Like, you have to be laying out in the lawn under the sun with an iced tea to read this book, and nothing else will suffice. So it might be a while, but I believe that this is a romance between two people who are like kind of cursed, so that anytime they break up with someone or someone breaks up with them, that other person goes on to meet the love of their life, like right away. And these two people date. I'm sure it's going to be fantastic. I've only heard good things, and her other two are so good. Next we have 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. This is a similar situation where I feel like I have to read it in summer. This is like a second chance type of romance between two childhood friends who are both authors, and they reconnect and they're kind of realizing that the other one has been writing books like for the other one. You know what I mean? Which sounds so sweet. I love romances with bookish people, so I'm just very excited for it. Okay, next. I should have put these together, but I have the sequel to the first book I talked about. Take a Hint, Dani Brown. So this is about the main character's sister and her romantic interest. I believe that Dani is like a PhD student, very studious, doesn't really have a lot of time for dating. And she meets this guy who might be you know, a fun casual hookup. Until it's more. Until it's more. Next we have Ready or Not by Cara Bastone. This is a romance between a woman who is newly pregnant and a man who is not the father. I know that a lot of people are not interested in pregnancy romances, but I don't know. Based off of what I've heard, I'm just really excited for a character in a new type of situation, a different stage of life than the characters that I'm used to reading about in romances. I'm excited for it, and the cover is so pretty. Okay, we have The Takeover by Kara Tanamachi. All I really know about this one is that it's like a workplace rivalry romance, and the cover is so cute. Next we have Only When It's Us by Chloe Lees. So I'm a little bit nervous about this one because this is a sports romance, and I don't care about sports. I'm so happy for you if that's your thing. It is deeply not my thing. I don't care about sports. I don't really know how heavily sports are going to play into this, but there's a soccer ball on the cover, so we'll see how this goes for me. But the reason I got this is because Chloe Lees is well known for her romances with main characters with disabilities, which I'm extremely interested in. I really want to dig deep into that. And this is the first in, I think, one of her most popular series, the Bergman Brothers series. I've heard wonderful things about her disability representation, especially with autism. I'm autistic, so I'm always looking for that. And I'm really excited to see how it goes. Hopefully the disability rep pulls me through soccer. Next we have The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. So me and my longtime BFF, Julia, hi Julia, we were feral for the Mediator series by Meg Cabot in middle school. Feral. Did any of you guys read it? Do you remember those books? It's a romance between a teenage girl who can see ghosts and a ghost. He's like a cowboy and they like help other ghosts pass on. It's a whole thing. We were nuts for those books. And so we decided that we would read The Dead Romantics together. But this is essentially a romance between a woman who can see ghosts and a ghost. That's all I really need to know. And next is actually a recommendation from that same friend, Julia. This is The Ex-Hex by Arin Sterling. This is essentially about a witch who's been broken up with, and she decides she's going to put a hex on her ex. She doesn't think that it's going to work. She's with some friends, she's drunk. She's just like kind of trying to let some steam off. She doesn't think it's actually going to harm him. And he ends up leaving town. She doesn't see him for a few years. He comes back. And a lot of bad stuff is happening to and around him, and now to the town, now that he's back. And so she needs to clean up the problem that she caused. And I think romance ensues, I assume. All right, and then we have Bringing Down the Duke by Evie Dunmore. This is another historical romance. I am a sucker for historical romances and classical romances. I love them. This, I believe, is a Victorian romance. And it's about a woman who is, I think, like the first or one of the first women to go to Oxford. And part of this agreement is that she will recruit people for the women's suffrage movement or the women's rights movement. I can't remember the specifics, but something like that. And so she chooses this duke who seems like a good mark. You know, she's gonna get him on their side. She's gonna get some money out of him. But he ends up playing her right back. And they're just playing each other. And that sounds really fun to me. And then last, in my most anticipated, if we're all being honest, is Don't Want You Like a Best Friend by Emma R. Albin. This is a Victorian romance between two girls, and I'm just gonna sob the whole time I read it. I'm so excited. So this is like kind of like The Parent Trap. They're not twins, to be clear. They're not related. They're both supposed to be like out in the dating scene, you know, it's the London season, they're supposed to be doing their whole thing, finding some wealthy men to marry, and they're just not into it, and they're like, hey, what if we like try to set up our parents instead? You know, let's put our attention to that. That sounds more fun. And through time, they start growing feelings for each other. I'm gay. I know that I just showed you a million straight romances, but I am gay. And I don't often see historical queer romances, so I'm really excited for this, and also the Art and Gwen one, but especially this one. Okay, well that was the romance stack. I think that's twice as big as any other genre stack. Okay, let's do the miscellaneous stack really quick. First we have the sequel to In the Company of Witches. This is When the Crow's Away by Orly Wallace. I found this for like $1 at the Goodwill, and I had just read it the first one the month before, so it worked out really well. Hopefully I stumble upon the first one at some point. I don't know what the mystery in this one is, but it's essentially cozy mysteries that take place in a B&B run by witches, and the witches are solving the mysteries. And then I have The Tale of Hilltop Farm, The Cottage Tales of Beatrix Potter by Susan Wittig Albert. So this is a cozy mystery series that takes place on the English countryside, and the main character solving the mysteries is actually the author Beatrix Potter, along with a cast of talking animals, which just sounds so cozy. So springy, like superb. I'm excited. Next we have the only nonfiction. I'm not really a nonfiction reader, but my doctor told me to pick this up when she diagnosed me with fibromyalgia. This is The Body Keeps the Score, Brain, Mind, and Body in the Healing of Trauma by Bessel van der Kolk, MD. I'm really nervous to pick this up. This is essentially how trauma affects our body and causes chronic pain, chronic illness, and other challenges in our physical body, not just psychological PTSD related challenges. To be frank, I'm already struggling with seeing my chronic pain as an extension of the trauma that I've experienced. It adds a really difficult emotional component to my fibromyalgia that I don't love dealing with. And I don't know, probably the end of this will be like inspirational or something. It'll help me. I assume that's why my doctor recommended it to me. But I'm just nervous that it's going to strengthen my mental connection between my current chronic pain in my body and the person who traumatized me. And I don't want that. So I'm nervous. If you've read this, please let me know if it helped you, if you think that it might help me. Luca's licking my toes. Okay, so next up is the only graphic novel, and that is Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me by Marika Takami and Rosemary Valero O'Connell. I have already read this. This is a YA graphic novel about our main character who is dating the very cute, the very popular Laura Dean, but Laura Dean keeps breaking up with her. And it explores things like how maybe it's not the best idea to put all of our energy into a partner who is not very nice to us rather than our wonderful friends who are nice to us. I wish that I had read this in high school. The artwork is beautiful, but this is not a review. And then we have 2 picture books. We have Frog and Toad by Arnold Lobel, and we have The Complete Brambly Hedge by Jill Barkland. I love animals who talk. I love talking animals who wear little clothes. And that's what both of these are. All right, fresh battery, let's keep pumping. All right, let's do this little sci-fi speculative fiction stack. First off, we have Annie-Bot by Sierra Greer. This is about a robot named Annie who is designed to be essentially a sex robot for a man named Doug, and about her journey finding herself, becoming more and more human, her very complicated relationship with Doug. I loved it. But this isn't a review video. Next we have All Systems Red, which is the first in the Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. This is about a robot who was designed to murder, who has tweaked their own wiring, and now all they want to do is eat snacks, watch TV, and not talk to anybody. And then we have I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. This is about a girl who lives with a group of women in like an underground bunker situation. They were all kidnapped. They're all being held there indefinitely. And I believe our main character is the only one who doesn't remember life before being in this situation, and is about her trying to connect with the women around her, find out about them, and find out about what life is like for people who haven't been kidnapped. This is going to be a tough one. I've heard wonderful things about it though, and I'm really excited for it. And then we have This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal El-Motar and Max Gladstone. This is a romance between 2 women who are on opposite sides of a time war. So they time travel throughout time for opposing sides, changing things through the timelines to meet their own goals. But they start leaving messages for each other and they fall in love. and I'm very excited for it. And lastly in this stack, we have The Other Valley by Scott Alexander Howard. So this is about a town that has a version of itself in the future on one side of it, and a version of it in the past on the other side. So it's all the same town, but present, past, and future. And one day, our main character realizes that the future versions of her best friend, her only friend, are in her valley, and realizes that they're essentially on a morning tour of her best friend. What does she do with the information that her only friend is going to die in the next, I think they're separated by 10 years? Another probably tough one, but I'm still so excited to read it. So next we have a few classics, 2 of them in the same series. I found these 2 really cool Anne of Green Gables at the Goodwill. One of them is the second one, Anne of Avonlea, and the other one is the 4th, Anne of Windy Poplars. Look at these covers really quick. They're so beautiful. They're just little mass market paperbacks, but I love the art, I love the font, I love the color palettes, so pretty. I have read the first Anne of Green Gables. I haven't read any of the others in the series. Hopefully I can find the first and the third. I think that there are a lot of them. I don't know if I need all of them, but if I find really cool covers like this, I will get them. I love some vintage mass market paperbacks, especially horror, but really any genre. They have some sick covers. And then we have Persuasion by Jane Austen. I'm a slut for Jane Austen. I love Jane Austen. I love Jane Austen. There are only a couple that I haven't read yet, and I've just been like pushing it off and rereading the ones that I have read, especially Pride and Prejudice and Emma, kind of just like over and over again, because I don't want to be out of them. It's been a few years since I've read a new one. I thought it was time. I'm always in the mood for her in the spring. So I thought this year I'll read Persuasion. It's pretty short, and I believe it's about a woman who was persuaded by her family not to marry a man because his standing wasn't high enough, something like that. And it's years later, she still has feelings for him, and he comes back into town. He's a captain, he's been away, and now he's back. And all the feelings and drama that ensue. Okay, so the next stack is like lit fic, contemporary fic, and historical fic all together. So the first one is Dogs of Summer by Andrea Abreu. I originally got this because it was a pick for Allison Page's Pocket Pages book club, and I didn't end up reading it that month, but I still want to. This book was translated from Spanish by Julia Sanchez, and it takes place in the Canary Islands in 2005, and it is about 2 young girls who are friends, but one of them is starting to realize that she wants to be more. She feels more... I don't like the whole more thing, and I catch myself doing it because that's kind of just how we speak, but I hate the assumption that a romantic relationship is more than a friendship. It really bothers me. Platonic relationships are so important, are so wonderful, are so complex. They're not lesser than romantic relationships. But anyway, she realizes that her feelings for this friend aren't strictly platonic. She has some romantic feelings for her. And Allie always talked about this being very gross, like very grossness of girlhood, which is exciting. And then we have more lesbians. This is Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe by Fanny Flagg. I have seen the movie. Hey guys, Mary Stuart Masterson in that movie. So, that movie was made in the 80s, so it's very implied that these 2 women might be in a romantic relationship, but it's never stated, it's never clear, but the gays know, and I've heard that it is more explicit in the book, so I've been wanting to read it. This is about 2 friends in 1930s Alabama. They're friends from a young age, and their relationship changes over time. I don't want to say too much. I'm not sure what's a spoiler and what isn't, and I'm also not sure how accurate the movie is, and the movie is really all that I know what this is based off of. But I'm really interested to see if the lesbianism is explicit in this. And then we have I Capture the Castle by Dodie Smith. I'm so annoyed because I ordered this secondhand online and I didn't realize that there's a huge thing on the front with J.K. Rowling's name. I don't want that. Anyway, This is about a teenage girl whose family lives in a really run-down English castle. I think their family used to be wealthy and they are not anymore. And they're trying to take care of this historical castle that has belonged to their family, and it's not going well. Next, we have The Berry Pickers by Amanda Peters. This cover, the deckled edges, the font inside this book is beautiful. But anyway, I'm going to read the little blurb from this one because I'm really worried about saying something that is a spoiler. So this says, a 4-year-old Mi'kmaq girl goes missing from the blueberry fields of Maine, sparking a tragic mystery that haunts the survivors, unravels a family, and remains unsolved for nearly 50 years. The synopsis of this really intrigues me. I've heard wonderful things about it. I'm very excited for this one. And next we have Interesting Facts About Space by Emily Austin. So I initially got this because I was under the impression that the main character is autistic. And since then, I've heard that maybe she's not, maybe she's just autistic coded. I'm not sure. I guess I'll find out when I read it. But this is about an eccentric girl. She knows a lot about space. She's afraid of bald men. And I think it's just a character study of her. I really hope she's actually autistic. Then we have Happiness Falls by Angie Kim. So this is a book about a missing persons investigation. We follow a family, father, mother, twins, a girl and a boy, and a youngest brother. And this youngest brother, Eugene, is autistic and he has something called Angelman syndrome. So he cannot speak. And one day he goes on a walk with his father, but only the boy comes back. And so the family is trying to figure out what happened to their dad. And the only person who is there can't tell them what happened. And then lastly, for the lit fic, we have Hello Beautiful by Anna Napolitano. This has been one of my favorite reads of the year so far. I read it from the library, but then it was on sale, so I got a copy. This is loosely inspired by Little Women. It follows 4 sisters that have similar personalities, similar relationships, and a boy who comes into their lives and really shakes things up. This explores grief, inherited trauma, and features one of my favorite characters that I've read from in a really long time. Okay, 2 more genre stacks to go. Let's do fantasy first. First, I have another fun little paperback. This is The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. And now that I'm looking at the cover, I don't know if this is actually horror. I thought it was fantasy. I'm not positive. I've never read any Neil Gaiman. Did he write Coraline? I have read Neil Gaiman, but I haven't as an adult. I haven't read anything other than Coraline. And I've heard great things about this one. I believe it follows a young boy and there's a mysterious house at the end of his street. Perhaps witches live there. I'm not really sure. I just know that everyone loves Neil Gaiman and everyone seems to love this book. Next, we have Lonely Castle in the Mirror by Mizuki Sujimura. I essentially got this because I really miss Allison Page's videos. So here we are. It's one of her favorites. And I miss her. So, here we are. I believe this is about a girl who really doesn't fit in at school. I think she gets bullied. She's really isolated. And she gets pulled into a sort of fantastical challenge game, something like that. Really, all I know is that this is one of Allie's favorites, and I miss Allie. Next, we have one that I'm so intimidated by. This is Babel by R.F. Kuang. So this is a dark academia type fantasy. I'm sure you know all about it, honestly. It's extremely popular. So this takes place in 1828, and it is about an orphan from China who is brought to England, to Oxford University specifically, by a professor to work in their prestigious Royal Institute of Translation. So this is really, I believe, about the racism and the colonialism of language and translation. I've heard such good things, but it is so long. And I hear that it's really dense. I believe that there are footnotes. Yeah, there are footnotes. Which is something that sometimes I'm all about. I love just a thick, meaty book that I can just spend a few weeks on. Footnotes just really get in there. But those moods don't come very often. But the next time that mood comes, I'll have Babel. And then we have 2 that were favorites / honorary mentions from last year that I originally read from the library, and now I own them. One of them is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab, and the other one is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sengu Mandana. This is about a woman who has made a deal with the darkness to be immortal, but the catch is that everyone forgets about her, like, instantly. Like, if they leave the room for a minute and come back, they've forgotten her. And it just follows her. And then this one is about a witch who has been isolated her entire life. In this version of witchcraft, all of the witches need to stay separate because it's too likely that they'll be found out if they're together. But she gets contacted to go teach a few orphan witches how to use their magic. And so it's breaking the rules, but she goes and it's found family. It's about learning that you're worth being loved. It's really beautiful. It has a sweet romance in it. I'm glad that I own both of these now. Next, we have another that, spoiler alert, will probably be one of my favorite books of this year. It is Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. This is another one that I know you've already heard all about, but long story short, it is about a peasant girl who falls in love with the Duke's son. The Duke doesn't like this, takes the son away, and she sails out to sea to save him. It is cozy, it is magical, it felt like someone reading me a story as I'm falling asleep. Then we have Garden Spells by Sarah Addison Allen. I'm gonna be real with you, I don't know what this is about. I tend to like cottagecore books, and I've seen this on a lot of lists, and then I saw it at the Goodwill. And now I own it. And then we have A Sweet Sting of Salt by Rose Sutherland. So this is a retelling of the Scottish Selkie folktale, except it's sapphic. Sign me up. All right, The Warm Hands of Ghosts by Catherine Arden. So I believe that this is about a fantasy version of World War I. If you're new here, World War I always makes me sob, but here we are. I keep signing up to sob, evidently. And this is about a woman who finds out that her brother has died in service, but for whatever reason, she doesn't really believe it. She goes out looking for him. That's all I know. And then last for fantasy, we have The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is a fantasy mystery. It's kind of like a Sherlock-y type situation. We have a woman and her sidekick who has been fantastically engineered to be an excellent sidekick for a detective. The Tainted Cup. All right, I saved my favorite for last. It's actually kind of a short stack this time because for my last haul, it was a huge stack. So I've gotten a bit less of it to try and balance things out, much like I'm probably not going to buy any romances for a while. Anyway, we're on to horror. First, we have one of my favorite books from last year, and that is The Reformatory from Tananarive Due. This book is set in 1950s rural Florida, and it follows two young black siblings, and the brother is sent to a reformatory for defending his sister against a white boy who's harassing her. And the thing about this boy is that he can see ghosts. So he's at this reformatory and he can see the ghosts of all of the boys who have died there. Some shady things are going on at this reformatory. This book is a masterpiece. Please read it. Then we have Rainbow Black by Maggie Thrash. I love this cover and I'm so excited that I got it new in paperback. This is about the Satanic Panic. I am extremely passionately anti-Satanic Panic, but I'm also fascinated by it, and I hope that this is a good critique of it. So this is about a woman whose parents, when she was a teenager, were arrested. They are kind of hippy-dippy, and they run a daycare. They're accused of some really horrific Satanic Panic related crimes. I'm not really sure how we get here, but it says that this book has murder, intrigue, queer love, dark humor, and the Satanic Panic. So, I mean, sign me up. Next we have Head Like a Hole by Andrew Van Wey. This one was recommended to me by the Eerie Fairy Tales in the comments when I read Dead 11, because this is another nostalgia horror and I love nostalgia horror. So this one takes place in the mid-90s. Let me just read you the first couple of sentences on the back. It's the mid-90s. Grunge and flannel are fading as the Spice Girls and Hot Topic conquer the malls. Cherry gloss glistens on the lips of the youth. Modems hiss as America comes online. And in a fog-drenched cove at the edge of New England, something terrible awakens when a fisherman reels in a gruesome catch, the remains of a young woman. I love nostalgia horror. I'm really looking forward to this. Yes. Thank you for the recommendation. Next, we have an oldie. This is Flowers in the Attic by V.C. Andrews. So, look. This was at my grandparents' house when I was growing up. I found it somewhere. I don't know. I remember finding it, and I remember being obsessed with the cover. My whole family were all horror hounds. I was from a young age. I saw the cover and I was just like, I need to read this. And my aunt was like, absolutely not. Big no, hard no. I had to have been in like the 4th or 5th grade, and she made the right call. So this is a tough one to come up with a synopsis for because it's so old that probably most people know the key word that goes with this book, if you know what I mean. But in case I'm wrong about that, I'm going to avoid that because I don't want to spoil this. In case you don't know, I wish I didn't know. Essentially, this is about a group of young kids whose dad has recently died, and he was the breadwinner. This is like, I don't know, in the 50s or 60s or something. And the mom is like, well, I can't work and take care of you alone. Like, I'm used to a certain lifestyle. And my dad is super wealthy. And these kids, they've never met their grandparents. She decides to take the kids to their grandparents' house for the first time. But she needs to talk to the dad first. She's like, we're gonna hold off on introducing you guys. There was a falling out. My parents aren't super stoked with me, and I'm worried that if they meet you before I talk to them, it's just gonna get ugly. So I'm gonna hide you guys in the attic. But like, just for a couple days. Like, I'm just gonna talk to my dad. I'm gonna get him on my side. He had disowned me, but I'm gonna convince him to give us the money once he passes. Like, don't worry about it. Just hide in the attic, just for a couple days. And it is years in the attic. Dark. Okay, next we have a new release, and that is Diavola by Jennifer Thorne. This is like a family vacation horror. I've heard that the horror comes partly from the traditional horror aspects and then also the family vacation of it all, which is very intriguing to me. Next we have The Jinn Waits 100 Years by Shubnam Khan. This is a gothic story. I love gothic stories, but instead of the traditional European white people and ghosts, this takes place in South Africa, and instead of ghosts, we have a djinn. Next, we have The Haunting of Velkwood by Gwendolyn Kist. It's my understanding that this is about a small group of teenage girls who are left alone in their town when the rest of the town turns into ghosts. That's what I remember from the synopsis. I kind of want to go into this as blind as possible, so I'm not going to reread the synopsis, honestly. I've heard that it's really weird, and I love weird, so I'm really stoked. I've saved the best for last. This next one is probably my most anticipated release of the year. I'm gonna cry. I'm so excited. And that is The Woods All Black by Lee Mandello. This has T for T romance. Okay? This is a historical horror with a trans main character. Okay? Was this written for me? I'm so excited. So, this is about a trans man. He is a nurse, I believe, for this foundation that sends nurses out to rural places to make sure that they have health care. It's set in the 1920s Appalachia, and our main character gets to the small town that he's been sent to, and there's a tomboy who's causing some problems for the other townspeople. And it's been decided that she needs to be reined in, you know? And also there's something very spooky going on in the woods. I haven't read it yet. I hope to read it soon. I'm very, very excited. Okay, well, that was the book haul. Thank you so much for watching. If you've made it to the end, feel free to leave me maybe some like pink heart emojis to match my shirt. And please, by all means, let me know if there are any of these books that you're especially excited to watch me read. If there are any that I should do my best to put in a reading vlog, please let me know. Feel free to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.